Could the Council of Europe, through its parliamentary arm, be the first EU organization to lift sanctions against Russia? This question has long been debated, but some fear this could soon be a reality. Joining us to discuss this is Dmytro Kuleba, the permanent representative of Ukraine to the Council of Europe. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Kuleba.
Thank you for having me.
First question. Russia is obviously pressuring the Council of Europe through lobbying and threats in order to return to the Parliament Assembly. I read in an op-ed by Volodymyr Yermolenko, a journalist, and Serhiy Sidorenko, who is an editor for European Pravda, and they said the loss of 2/3 of Russia's membership fee, about 20 million euros per year, has become a game changer. So my question would be, do you think PACE is ready to sacrifice its value in return for Russia's membership?
Well, I have to admit that there is a strong and an influential group of those in the Council of Europe and in PACE as such, who believe that PACE should make a concession, should turn a blind eye on the non-implementation of the resolutions adopted by the Assembly in response to the Russian aggression against Ukraine, and reinstall Russian delegation in the Parliamentary Assembly. So they're ready to compromise the institution for the sake of having Russia back and resuming its payments. And they also hope, the advocates of Russia, they also hope that Russia will become more cooperative and more open for dialogue once it is back to PACE. With all the naivety of such approach, they still believe that this is going to happen.
But so Russia has failed to fulfill any conditions adopted by PACE in earlier resolutions. And you talked about yourself about naivety. So why do you think they would start now, if, for example, like we're talking about the Minsk agreements?
But that's exactly the point that we are making to our partners, that it is naive to believe that once Russia is back to PACE, it will become more cooperative and constructive in cooperating with the Assembly, with the Council of Europe as such, in implementing resolutions, in implementing Minsk agreements. This will not be the case. So the Assembly will compromise itself, the Council of Europe will be compromised, but Russia will remain the same.
So, if I may understand, what does Russia really stand to gain from being a member of PACE?
They want to be present on this platform where 47 member states represented by members of parliament discuss various political issues and social issues related to Europe, where they adopt resolutions which do have value in European relations and do help to make a difference in various countries. So they want to be part of this process. But more importantly, what Russia wants to prove by its return to PACE is that since 2014, the policy of sanctions against Russia is falling apart. So this return will mean that the Assembly will be the first institution in Europe to lower pressure on Russia. This is what they want. They need this victory to show that the policy of Vladimir Putin is prevailing, that Europe is changing its mind, and others will follow the Assembly.
So in a way, it's some sort of a defeat of the sanctions and all this process?
Of the policy of putting pressure on Russia for its crimes in Ukraine.
Now, in September, Politico quoted the Secretary General of the Council of Europe saying this, I quote, if Russia is forced to leave, then 140 million people will be deprived of going to the highest court in Europe, which is very important for Russian citizens. My question would be, how influential is this court?
Well, this court is a real jewel in the crown of the Council of Europe. The main thing about the court is that its judgments must be implemented by member states. There are no options to refrain from implementation. Of course, implementation may take years, but they must be implemented. And this is what irritates Russia. But the argument about the potential withdrawal of Russia from the Council of Europe and from the court is, in our view, invalid. Because Russia has already adopted a law, a national law, that allows it to ignore those judgments by the European Court which Moscow doesn't like.
Well, thank you, Mr. Kuleba. It was a pleasure to have you in this interview. That was Dmytro Kuleba, the permanent representative of Ukraine to the Council of Europe. Thank you for joining us. Stay tuned for the rest.